What's up, guys? Welcome to the Put Me In Coach podcast,
where we go beyond the headlines and deep dive everything NFL.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Andy.
Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Hey. How we doing?
What's happening? I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk Houston Texans football, man. Great football team.
Sir.
Excited.
A really good football team. An unbelievably quick rebuild randomly. Can we get one of those?
Yeah.
Where do I sign up to get the 1 year rebuild? That's what I want.
Yeah, I don't think they pass him out. I think that, as we'll get into, I think that this is a very unique situation. But yeah, before we get into it, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and roll the clip. All right, we're back, man. Let's just dive right in. Let's dive right into the 2023 season. Team goes 10-7. They win the AFC South for the first time in a few years. The first playoff win in a few years happens with a blowout win against a very good Cleveland team that was kind of surging with Joe Flacco. There's all this energy. There's all this momentum. Kind of topples over at Baltimore in the second round of the playoffs. Me personally, that was to be expected. I felt like Baltimore was the best team in football last year, but just getting this out of the way before we kind of break down how we got here with this team, hell of a season from a total dark horse, man, and a really good ball club.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the ability to not only hit on a franchise quarterback, but then have the cojones to trade up, kind of mortgage your future a bit, and then take a swing on a franchise edge and hit on both draft picks is an absolute masterclass by their GM. And I mean, it showed, right? Like it kind of all came together at the perfect time. And like you said, dark horse. I don't think anybody saw this coming. I think everybody looked at Jacksonville coming off of a crazy win against the Chargers in the round one a couple years ago, and then kind of going toe to toe with Mahomes for 3 quarters in that divisional round game. I think everybody kind of penciled Jacksonville in to be the winners of the AFC South, and Houston just came out of nowhere and really just took it from him. And I am not sure they're giving it back for a while. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's looking scary for those other 3 teams.
Well, the bad news for Houston is the division's getting better quickly. The good news is I think you're the best team of the bunch in the division. What's really amazing to me, I mean, this whole coach hiring, you just mentioned drafting CJ, trading up for Will. Because remember, a lot of the talk going into the draft was, are they going to take Will Anderson or C.J. Stroud? Are they going to take, or Bryce Young if the Panthers go 1? And to make a move like that and take those 2 guys at 2 and 3, that has to work. And it's a prime example of like what I refer to as putting them things right on the table and just plopping them down. You know what I'm talking about? Like just like I'm going full send on this thing. And when you roll the dice like that and it works, there's nothing more exciting in football, honestly. And to see them,
big dick energy is what that is.
Absolutely.
Big dick energy.
Yes, it is.
It just is. I'm
sorry.
It's
that BDE on that
BDE,
thing.
for sure.
And from for what it's worth, I want to give the first bit of credit to Nick Caserio because Houston's GM. For those of you who don't know, the thing about it is, with the Lions video, we talked a lot about Brad Holmes and why and how he's been so pivotal in shifting the culture in Detroit and the roster, and having a real GM, as Eagles fans, 49ers fans, Chiefs fans know, it really makes a huge difference. It is a top-down job. And I'm not so sure that Nick Caserio isn't like right up there at the top of the list, kind of beneath like, the Howie Rosemans, but like right up there with Brad Holmes of like kind of newer GMs that have really just taken swings and pulled something off so amazing. What's so interesting about going into last year is they had 3 head coaches in 2 seasons leading up to 2023, right? You have Bill O'Brien, who's fired in the early part of 21 and replaced by David Culley, who's then fired at the end of the year and replaced by Lovie Smith in 22.
Let's do this. You guys are hired. You're in, unless you're like the weirdest guys ever and I don't see it.
Great.
Was that a fart?
I don't know.
Bunch of farts.
Just bad hires, man.
Bad hires. But the thing is, this combination of
Combination.
DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowick at DeMeco Ryans, defensive guy in the Shanahan coaching tree from San Francisco, and Bobby Slowick, who's in that classic McVay, LaFleur, McDaniel coaching tree that we always see on the graphics.
Yeah.
But that marriage, I think, has created a new trend, right? The NFL is a copycat league. If you saw what Atlanta did this offseason by bringing in Raheem Morris as this defensive culture guy, and then pairing him with the OC from Los Angeles, right? This is, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, even in Seattle, right? With Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb.
Yeah. I almost said Mike McDaniel again.
It's hard.
I almost did it.
Yeah, but this merger of CEO, head coaches, Detroit similar. I mean, they're both offensive guys, but Dan Campbell, culture, locker room, player first. Ben Johnson, whiz kid, OC. If it works, people are finding that this is an amazing way to build a coaching staff. And honestly, hats off to Nick Caserio for the gamble in the draft. They also drafted Tank Dell in the 3rd round last year, using a pick they acquired from Cleveland. The Deshaun Watson trade, the drafting of Stingley and some of these defensive pieces in 22 when there wasn't a quarterback available, getting CJ, trading up for Will Anderson, hiring DeMeco, bringing in Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator. It's really impressive what the front office has done the last couple of years, and rebuilds do not happen this quickly. Period.
No, they don't.
So that was last year. I think it's only fitting for us to kind of start with the obvious. We touched on him, obviously. 2nd overall pick in 2023, quarterback out of Ohio State, C.J. Stroud. What did you see from C.J. last year that led to him winning Offensive Rookie of the Year? And what do you have to say about him?
A baller. That's what I saw. I saw an absolute baller. I think the thing with CJ that I find the most interesting is, he's running around with Micah Parsons a lot. He's doing a lot of interviews. He's doing a lot of podcasts in the off season, and I watch a lot of them because I love the energy that CJ brings. But I love that every time that he gets on camera, pre-game or post-game, he normally shouts out Jesus or God. I think that's super dope, honestly, to have a platform like that and to shout out God. 2, it shows me his head's in the right place, I guess, if that makes sense. 2, he's just a leader. Like he's not alpha in the sense that he kind of clashes with DeMeco Ryans. I think DeMeco Ryans is the alpha of that locker room. But he's a great complementary piece to DeMeco Ryans, which is just like a go-getter guy who's going to like rah-rah the team and really, come through for his squad. He seems like a really, really, really good kid. And you even being somebody who, obviously grew up in Ann Arbor and watched him for 3 years and had my Ohio State bias towards him, right? Is he won't be good in the pros. He'll flop like the rest of them did. It's fun to watch him now because he went to a team that is not in my division. They're not even in my conference. They're a similar team as the Lions have been over the last 10, 12 years. So it's fun to watch him go somewhere and succeed to that level and kind of prove all the haters, like myself included, wrong. I was never super down on CJ, but I was never super high on him either. And I think to watch that form into what it is has been super fun.
Yeah, and just real quick,
go
ahead. Real quick, neither were the rest of you, by the way. Stop the backtracking.
That's real.
I remember the memes and the segments after that bad preseason game against New England last year where he threw the picks and you guys all threw him under the bus and reversed it and ran over it again. He was another Ohio State bust. He was another failure, blah, 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 blah. Don't come around now and say that you predicted the superstardom and you predicted this and you predicted rookie of the year. So, Andy, I just want to give you some credit for, acknowledging that, you were lower on him than he turned out to be.
I was.
People are burning the videotapes of that.
You have to be humble when you come back and you were proven wrong. I mean, you'll see 100%. A lot of that happen this time next year with the two of us. We're not going to be right about everything we say. But I think it makes you more honest of a person. It makes you more listenable because you're not just BSing everybody. You're not just saying, "Oh, I was always high on CJ." No, I really wasn't. I actually really wanted him to fall to the Lions and sit behind Goff for a year. That was like my dream, because I didn't think he was ready. I thought, but a season behind Goff, I think he can really be something special. And obviously, he didn't need that because he went out there and balled. And I'll even elaborate on that a little more, given my personal notes on CJ. I saw a post that compared, the main numbers, the completion rating, the yards per attempt, the total yards, the total touchdowns and turnovers, and the passer rating with the first year of a lot of legendary guys. So you have Tom Brady on this list. You have Cam Newton, who had an unbelievable rookie year, at the very least. You have Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Peyton Manning are the other names. So completion percentage, CJ had 63.9. The only other one even in the same stratosphere was Brady, who had a 63.9, the exact same one. And then you had Aaron Rodgers at a 63.6. Everybody else had a 60 or below. Yards per attempt, CJ had 8.2 yards per attempt, which is insane because the next closest
check down Charlie going on.
No, dude. The next closest was Cam Newton at 7.8. Everybody else, Aaron Rodgers 7.5. Everybody else was in the 6 range. Total yards, he had 4,275. The only other one that surpassed him was Cam Newton, 4,757. And again, Cam Newton had an unbelievable rookie year, if you remember, if you were there. Aaron Rodgers, 4,245. So he was right behind him. And then, total touchdowns. CJ had 26 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Cam had 35 touchdowns, but he had 19 interceptions. And Aaron Rodgers had 32 touchdowns, but he had 16 interceptions. So, I guess pick your poison there. Do you want the more touchdowns? Probably, but that's a lot more interceptions than 6. And then passer rating. I mean, CJ had 100.8 passer rating. Brady, 86. Cam Newton, 84. Drew Brees, 79. Aaron Rodgers, 93.8. Peyton Manning, 71.2. So, given all those numbers, he's stacking up, and obviously this doesn't mean he's going to go on and be the Hall of Famer that the rest of those guys are. But it's a really, really, really good start to look at those numbers, to look at the names on that list, and to look at the fact that a lot of those guys, you look at Cam Newton, he comes in as a number 1 pick, and they didn't really change that culture within a year, like we had touched on. I mean, you're walking into a situation where the next 10 years of this Houston Texans franchise should be very plentiful. There shouldn't really be a ton of down years and retooling years. They will need to happen at some point, but I'm just not sure they're going to need to happen in the next 3 to 4 years. And I'll touch on that a little bit more. they have an offensive line that's held up by Laramie Tunsil. If you've watched this before, I've talked about Laramie Tunsil. I think he's unbelievable. I think PFF rated him the 8th best tackle in the league. I think he's more like top 5. I think he's super underrated, and he's been just a tank for years. You drafted a center in Juice Scruggs, who, I think if you just look at the PFF ranking, it's not like great. He was a 2nd-round pick last year, but I think he showed a ton of promise towards the latter half of the season. And correct me if I'm wrong, Texans fans, that's the vibe I got, was that he was getting better as the season went on. So I think that's a good pick moving forward. That's the more comfortable he gets, especially holding up a line with a guy like Laramie Tunsil, and then a guard in Shaq Mason, who, has just been great his whole career, right? He was great in New England. He was great with the Bucs, and he's going to be great here. He took a bit of a step back PFF wise last year, but he's just a solid guard. He's a brick house. You know what I mean? He's impossible to move. He's just that guy. And I think when you compare that with CJ and then give him a Joe Mixon who can complement a Dameon Pierce, who by all accounts was not very good last year, but the year before showed a ton of promise. So I think if you can have Mixon be your 3-down back, you can have Pierce be maybe your goal line, kind of your bruiser guy, you're just cooking with gas, man. And then the belle of the ball with this team, in my opinion, outside of CJ, is the wide receiver room. I mean, you added Stefon Diggs. I think you're going to see a big step forward with Tank Dell. Nico Collins got his contract, so he's locked up. Dalton Schultz extended 3 more years. He's locked up. You have depth pieces in John Mechie, Noah Brown, and Robert Woods, all serviceable wide receivers on any given day. So when you have them being your 4th, 5th, and 6th guys, I think this is the wide receiver room that we should all be looking at and saying, I think this is the best one in the NFL, not so much Chicago and not so much Philly, because I think what these guys have over those is depth, because they have solid depth pieces. So whatever they lack in star power, which they still have, I mean, you still have a Stefon Diggs, and I think Nico Collins is coming, and I think Tank Dell's coming, honestly. But what you lack in those superstar names, you have in a lot of depth. So I know you wanted to touch on them, so I'll let you cook on that. But I think this offense is going to be really good.
Yeah, and I mean the culture of it all too with CJ, I think, is massive. I mean, by all accounts, 100%. I don't know if you've ever watched TJ Hujmanzada on the Herd, but he talks a lot about. What do you mean?
Of course I have.
Yeah, he talks a lot about how CJ is just like, no matter who he comes across, is like this like very like warm, welcoming, like friendly person, and like he just lights up a room, and he's got this way about him, and he's overcome a lot of adversity on a familial level, which is always hard to do. So nothing but love for him. I think what you touched on with CJ too, and mentioning the offensive line and the weapons that he has around him. That's not even getting into Bobby Slowick. And I
seriously, yeah.
I don't mean to undermine what CJ did last year, but we touched on a guy a few videos ago in Bryce Young, and I want Panthers fans to be patient, because what CJ has and has had his rookie year that Bryce didn't is a lot of support and the right people in the building. And I just want Panthers fans to give it time, because I know like we're in this world now where it's like, oh my God, the Panthers like blew it so bad. CJ's a Hall of Famer, Bryce is a bust. He looked so much better his rookie year, but Panthers fans, like, give it time. You did touch.
I do want to touch. I'm sorry to cut you off. I do want to touch on that just for a second, because I do believe in my heart of hearts, if it goes the opposite way, I think we see CJ struggle a lot last year, and I think we see Bryce really ball. Just for what you just said, right? I think that's important to note. Do I think CJ struggles as much as Bryce? Probably not, just because of just pure size. But I also think if you put Bryce into that Houston Texans offense, he looks amazing. So to play off what you said, please be patient. He's coming. He will be a very serviceable quarterback probably within this year.
Yeah, and it's I'm to piggyback on what you said about the weapons, right? I'm I'm always gravitating towards pass catchers, right? That's just what I like when I watch football. It's really important to me. It's something that I'm into. You know what I mean? It's a style, it's a culture, it's something about the art of throwing the football and the guys who catch it and make plays that it blows me away. And what's cool about this is with this team, I felt like a kid in the candy store, like going through these players and like making sense of this roster and this offensive depth. We just did a team last week in Green Bay, and this whole offensive unit, especially with the LaFleur Slowick connection, the quarterbacks, the young receiver depth, all of it, really they remind me so much of each other. I think that for all the marbles, I'll give Houston the slight edge. With the conversation of this season, there's so much debate now of who's the one, who's the star, who's the guy. One of these guys is going to separate. And kind of going down that list, I felt the need to kind of look at all these guys, and obviously starting with Stefon Diggs, the big free agency splash.
You think we need one more? You think we need one more? All right, we'll get one more.
I do like the signing a lot, not as much as everybody else, I think. But the reality on Stefon Diggs is that the fact that he is 30 years old, and I do believe is starting to decline a little bit, I don't know that it matters so much in this situation as much as it did in Buffalo. I don't believe he's going to be the one, but when you look at his career over the last few years, he's been a top 5 wide receiver for the better part of 5 seasons, as recently as the first half of last year. So I don't think he's washed. I don't think it's over. I think he's going to be a huge contributor, but for my money, I don't believe that he is going to take the reins of this receiving group next year. Friend of the show, Nico Collins.
Love Nico Collins. He's
great, dude, and he's every bit of the hype that's around him right now. And last season, he was the one. He is 6'4", 215 pounds. He plays like it. Those of us who are Michigan fans and watched him, you could tell when he was at Michigan that if he got drafted to the right team, he was going to have a chance to be a true alpha wide receiver. He's got the size, he's got the hands, he's got the strength. Last year, he had 80 catches for 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns in 15 games. I mean, those are wide receiver 1 numbers. They're not top 5 wide receiver numbers, but they're wide receiver 1 numbers. You mentioned him, but I do want to give some shine to Dalton Schultz. He proved last season that he was not a Dallas Cowboy passing game merchant. He proved it. He was actually slightly more productive last year than he was even in 2022 in Dallas. And this is why they brought him in. I mean, he's 6'5", 244 pounds. Obviously, Dallas drafted him a few years ago out of Stanford, and he's been a huge cornerstone of Dallas's offense the last few seasons. And the thing about Dalton Schultz is, I'll go on record and say this, not everybody will agree, but this is how I feel. I don't think he's the best, but I think for about 3 years he's been the most underrated tight end in football. He is
I agree with that.
Stud tight end. He's very, very good. He has the size. He's a great pass catcher. And I don't think he's going anywhere. And you mentioned him too. They have depth pieces. Noah Brown's a guy I like who also came over with Dalton Schultz from Dallas this past year. 7th round pick out of Ohio State in 2017. But the last couple of years has really popped. He only played 10 games for Houston last year, but he was very productive in those 10 games. And he will have his role reduced with the addition of Diggs, but he's got a vertical game to him that's really impressive for a guy who's not like a star player. So I wanted to give those guys some light, but you know how I am, man. I play favorites. So
yes, you do.
I play favorites. It is what it
Yes,
is. I got my favorite, and my favorite is Nathaniel Tank Dell.
Feel that.
I want to get this out of the way now because I feel one of the things that I run into is a very casual take. And it's okay. I'm not trying to like poo-poo anybody's assessment. But I do think it's a little bit ignorant and lazy that I kind of hear a lot of this, like he's this like gadget slot guy because he is 5'9", 165 pounds. And so it's lazy thinking, right? It's this like, oh, he's this Mims, he's this like little Darren Sproles, he's this kind of gadget player. He's more like Steve Smith than anything.
Yes.
He is small, but he is a pure alpha outside wide receiver in a little guy's body. He had 47 catches, 709 yards, and 7 touchdowns in 11 games. He did have his season cut short with a fractured fibula, which is another thing that people are worried about, but he is running at full speed and practicing and running around, and I think he will be totally good to go. I don't really care about that. They drafted him in the 3rd round out of Houston College last year. And part of the reason, I don't know if people know this, but part of the reason they drafted Tank is because of CJ's insight into Tank, and that's his boy. He wanted him on the team. They're boys, you know. They're pushing bunk beds together to make room for extra activities.
We did it. We did it. It looks amazing. Look at that. That looks like what you would buy from a store. It should have been. Look at all the sports space. So much. We do aerobics in here. So many activities. Do step class. It's making my head spin. How many activities we can do? Play Army Man. Yeah.
Like this is
Yes,
these are homies. You know what I mean? Like so when we
Yeah.
talk about Tank Dell, we talk about CJ's connection. That is a part of it, but aside from that, his ability to get in and out of breaks is next level. It's Antonio Brown. It's like it's on that level. His ability to make in cuts and then get open on outbreaking routes is insane. He can go deep. He can go underneath. He can make plays with the ball in his hands. I understand the Nico love. I understand the Stefon Diggs love. I wanted to give Dalton Schultz love because I think he's been slept on for years, including in Dallas. This, for me, is my star wide receiver on this team. I see something watching him on film that I just don't see ever. And I know the size is an issue. I mean, he's smaller than me playing NFL football. I get it. But if you can look past that, start to view him as a Steve Smith. This is an outside wide receiver. This is a 1. He's just small, and he doesn't need to be big because you can't cover him, because his route running is on the level of an all-pro veteran wide receiver. I'm telling you, if anyone's ever bored and likes to watch film, just watch this guy run routes. It's a thing of beauty, and he can do it all. So I just wanted to touch on that receiving group because it's a really exciting unit, and I don't know that we're going to get many more of these doing these team breakdowns that it's as good as this squad.
Completely agree.
Yeah, shout out my man Tank Dell.
Facts. Why'd you get shot? That's what I want to know. Why'd you get shot?
He was
Don't
like a
get shot again.
Yeah,
Please-
he was like a bystander.
Please don't get shot again.
Yeah.
Don't be somewhere you can get shot. You're too good at football. We like you too much. You're a friend. You're also a friend of the show.
Yeah, he
Please,
is.
no
He
more
is.
shootings.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, man. Like I said, I play favorite. He's one of my favorite players right now, and
He's fun to watch. He's
I'm
super fun to watch.
I'm here for the comeback. I think he's going to come out and like
Yeah.
really silence a lot of critics. And I love Nico too, and I understand why Nico or Diggs is a lot of people's first choice, and it's fine. But just stop dismissing this guy as a gadget slot player. That's not what he is. Let's pivot because I could talk about this offense for the rest of my life, but I
Sure.
think that's boring to
Same.
people forever.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start defensively because this is a defense for me that is a bit underrated. It's not elite, but it's
Oh,
underrated.
yeah.
There's some players on this defense, and they're young players, and they're potential ones at their position. Talk to me about give me a guy that you're really kind of fixated on defensively, or maybe a unit, whatever it is.
Yeah. No, there's a guy, and I think he's going to be the most important guy this upcoming season, and that's Derek Stingley. I think when you look at the defensive line, you have Will Anderson, you signed Danielle Hunter, you're pretty good on that D line with just those two, and I know there's more pieces that I'm forgetting to mention, but those two are really as solid as they come. The secondary is not so solid. They're good. They're not great. But I think if you have Derek Stingley push himself even further than the jump from his rookie year to his sophomore year, you will have a guy who's widely considered top 5 in the league, opposed to, somewhere in the top 15 where I think most people would rank him right now. under Lovie Smith, he had a pretty piss poor rookie season. He was injured before the draft. He dealt with injuries throughout that season, and I think his PFF grade was like a 49.9. So that's pretty just god awful, right? And there, like I said, there's context that goes into it. There was a lot of injuries. The scheme wasn't right for him. The defense was just bad overall. But that doesn't make it any different that you still passed on Sauce Gardner, you know? So he's always going to be attached to that. You're always going to look at that as a Houston fan and go, okay, what did they see in Derek Stingley that they didn't see in Sauce Gardner? Because, you know, if you remember, Sauce went number 4. So it was just one pick later, and Sauce is widely considered the best cornerback in the league. So that's the expectation you're having to live up to. What DeMeco Ryans did last year was he switched the Texans to a 4-2-5 defense. And he ran, 78.2, I have here. 78.2% of the plays were run in the 4-2-5. So that's putting, 5 DBs out there, give or take, safeties, all that. So they're running a much heavier set defense when it comes to the secondary. So there's a lot more guys out there, and you're not putting Derek on an island per se. You have this help for him. And then their sub packages, which they ran the rest of the time for the most part, 18% of the time, was a 4-3-4. So again, you're having help in that secondary constantly. So this not only benefited Stingley on the field, but his PFF grade jumped from a 49.9 his rookie season to a 85.3. So he made a 35.4 jump from his rookie season to his second season. So he was really elite. He's a freaky fast player. He's got great ball hawking ability. And I think if DeMeco can get those two things and mix it with being more of a hard body, hard hitting guy, I think Derek Stingley is going to be a top 5 cornerback by the end of this season. And he's going to have to be, because I think this is the weakest unit on the team. And that's not saying they're terrible, because they're not. If you even have a guy like Derek Stingley playing how he played last year, you're objectively not terrible. But a step forward makes this secondary look that much better. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think that he is going to be a pivotal piece to this team, to this franchise moving forward. And he has to be. You drafted him 3 overall 2 years ago.
Yep. Yeah. I'm with you. I think this is such a testament to coaching, right? This is why I give so much credit to the front office at the top of the video, because DeMeco Ryans is such a good defensive mind coming out of San Francisco that he has the ability to unlock these things. And another, if you don't mind, I want to touch on the following number 3 overall, number 3 overall pick from 2023, Will Anderson. You touched on the signing of Danielle Hunter from Minnesota. This is a huge signing for Houston. In our Detroit Lions video, I talked about how I felt like Aiden Hutchinson was a touch overrated, despite the fact that I'm a huge fan. I think Aiden is really good. I think he'll have a chance to be a superstar this year with Detroit because they brought in DJ Reader from Cincinnati. I feel similarly about Danielle Hunter being signed to Houston, and here's why. When you add a piece on the defensive line, what happens is teams now have to play by the rules. And what I mean by that is no double teams, no chipping, no extra hold, no crazy schemes to phase somebody out of the game. Now we have somebody else on our line that if you play that game, we're going to hit you with the other guy. So Will Anderson will be, assuming that Danielle Hunter is healthy and on the field all season, Will Anderson will be playing by a different set of rules this year. This guy's a full-blown difference maker. And again, taking that gamble, trading up and drafting him at 3 paid off hugely, massively for this defense. He hasn't quite evolved into a sack artist yet. His finesse game, his sort of his moves, his kind of NBA 2K layup package, if you will, in terms of sack artistry isn't quite there yet, but he proved to be arguably the best bull rushing edge last season in football. He had 68 pressures and 8 sacks, which doesn't completely scream dominance to you. But again, the reason why he won Defensive Rookie of the Year last season is because of the myriad of other things he does and the way that he disrupts the game in a sense that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. He had the 5th highest pass rush win rate of all time for a rookie. And he was 4th in total pressures as a rookie of all time. This is all time. So we're talking top 5 ever of
that's insane.
Of pass rush win rate and total pressures. So he doesn't have the max. He's not Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, pure pass rush, get to the quarterback, sack artist, razzle dazzle. But he mucks up the pocket so consistently. Again, top 5 ever as a rookie, that your quarterback is disrupted for the entire game and almost can't figure out why. It's like an unsettling villain. Do you know what I mean by that? Like there's it's like a guy who's following you, and every time you turn around, he hides behind the bush, and you're like, what? And at the end of the movie, you get stabbed, right? And it's like he's been there the whole time. You couldn't see him. That's how he plays. He just bully balls his way in and just bull rushes. He's better and stronger and more athletic than the tackles. And another thing about him is his ability to play in the run game. One of my knocks, again, I'm sorry to keep comparing the two players, but it's just star for star. One of my knocks against Aiden has been I feel like he can be a bit one-dimensional as a pure pass rush. Will Anderson was the fifth highest run-stopping edge last year in football. So top 5 against the run, run-stopping rate last year in the entire NFL at edge. That's veterans, stars, rookies, everybody. And then he was 6th in the NFL at drawing holding penalties. So these are all stats that don't show up in pressures and sacks. And we look at the numbers and we're like, only 8 sacks, he wasn't dominant. But when you factor all these things in, and shout out PFF for making these things available, you start to realize that the Houston Texans have a full-blown star in the making at edge. And he's not a star in the way Max Crosby is a star. But, he allegedly added almost 20 pounds of muscle in this offseason. And if he can maintain that speed, that athleticism, that dynamic play, and that muscle.
Pounds?
Yeah. I mean, it's about 15, they say, but who knows? Anywhere between 10 and 15 at least, right? He got a lot bigger and stronger in the offseason. This guy's a problem. And he's a problem not because of he got a hat trick of sacks. I'm not nothing against those guys. I mean, those guys are superstars. But it's death by 1,000 cuts with Will Anderson. It's stopping the run. It's tackles for loss in the backfield. It's drawing 2 defenders. It's, oh, wait, you're holding me again. That's 15 yards. That's bringing the offense back. Sorry, that's a loss of down. Move it on back. Can't hold me. That's illegal. And those things add up to, of course, like I said, I mean, 4th all time in total pressures against the quarterback as a rookie. It's just, he's a massive disruption. He's so well-rounded. He's so athletic. He's so gifted. And, I got to give credit to, obviously, D'Amico for the coaching. He's such a D'Amico player. He's perfect for this system. But also Nick Caserio for making that move, seeing the talent, taking the gamble, because watching film of this guy, I was like, I didn't even realize he was this good, because I tend to focus on things like the offense or CJ. And I'm watching this guy and I'm like, oh, this is why he won Rookie of the Year with only 8 sacks. It's all the metrics that we use to show, disruption. And if this team is going to make a run next year, win the division, make a run, the AFC is a gauntlet of quarterbacks. He's going to have he's going to have to take one little step forward and even be better than he was last year and really dominate this pass rush. And I think he can do it because of Danielle Hunter. Danielle Hunter is going to require blocking too. So teams aren't going to be able to stop both of them. And this defense is going to be filthy, I think, next year.
Well, speaking of next year, where do you got him? Where's your prediction?
Yeah. I'm going to go, I think I have them at 11-7 6.
Okay.
I'd like to be more generous, but I do like this AFC South a lot more. I actually think, and I'm sorry, Houston fans, I know you've written them off. I think you're going to be in a little bit of a cage match with Jacksonville and Indy.
Hey, freak show! You're going nowhere. I got you for 3 minutes. 3 minutes of playtime.
A little bit next year.
Yeah,
I
me
really
too.
like both of those teams, particularly Jacksonville, who we just forgot about because Trevor Lawrence got hurt last year and they like kind of regressed, but like really probably could have won the division last year if he didn't. I predict them to win the division in a close division race. I don't think it's the Super Bowl year yet, but I think if you're a Houston fan, you got a lot to be excited about. I really do.
100%.
Yeah. What about you?
No, I totally agree. Same ballpark. I was a little more generous. I got him at 12-5. And I it's funny enough, I said the exact same thing. Narrowly wins the division over Jacksonville. So again, same deal. I think Jacksonville will be right back in the mix. And I think you make the AFC divisional round, but you run into the King of Kings in Mahomes, and you go down because that's what people do when they go up against Mahomes. Unfortunately, I think the secondary.
I'll go 12-5 as well. That's good.
Sure,
I'll change it.
sure.
Yep.
I think the secondary needs a couple more pieces to get through those gauntlet of quarterbacks we were just referring to. I mean, in the AFC playoffs, you're going to have to see some combination of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, maybe a Trevor Lawrence, maybe an Anthony Richardson, maybe you know what I mean? Like that. Do I even need to keep going? Really?
Russell
It's
Wilson.
like. Deshaun Watson, maybe you got to see Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
You know? But even still, I mean, it's like we
Sam
joke
Darnold.
now, but like, yeah, we've seen Russell. Yeah, Sam. Yeah,
Sorry.
dude. Yeah. So I think again, not a Super Bowl year for you guys. But if you won it, it wouldn't shock me. Might be. I don't see a sophomore slump coming from CJ. I'll tell you that much. And I think you guys are gonna be really good. So yeah, that's what I got for you.
I'm with you. And whenever a really good team gets better in the offseason, it's scary. And I think they got a lot better. So
they got a lot better.
I'm with you,
Yeah,
man.
they have Jeff Okudah on their team though.
Right. Well, and in closing,
Yeah.
in closing, Lord have mercy, I'm gonna bust.
Yeah.
In conclusion, guys, if you're still watching, guys, please like, comment, subscribe. But, we're excited. We're so excited about Houston, and we're so excited about this division. So, thanks for joining us, man, and thank you for joining me.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right. Peace.
Till next time.
Yes,
Peace.
sir.